4 out of the 14 full-time football playing members saw a change. Now, we don't have divisions anymore, but all 4 of these were in the ACC Coastal Division. We began with Duke and Mike Elko. Mike Elko went 9-4 in year 1. Danny, are we feeling better, worse, or the same?
I would hope we'd feel better, right?
Oh.
I mean, it was maybe one of the did they exceed the win total by maybe more than most? Like, I know there was Kansas and a couple schools where it was extremely low, but I would imagine that Mike Elko and Duke exceeded their win total just about as much as anybody else. I think that's your barometer. But I mean, you got to feel super pumped with the job he did in year 1.
Yeah, better.
And he's got a stud at quarterback now, where they're bringing back. By the way, how did they do that?
Riley?
Yeah.
I can tell you. So what Mike Elko had a great line. He said, he was like, look, coming from where I came from, meaning Texas A&M, he was like, I know all about poaching rosters. And he was like, so what we did is we went to all of our guys before the process even started and said, look, here is what they're going to come and offer you. Here's what we can do for you. And he tried to give them all the information up front, right at the end of the season, right at the beginning of the process. And I don't know if there were any like runs at Riley Leonard, but clearly that message has worked because he's not going anywhere else. And he's going in, Riley Leonard's going into this fall as a top 5 quarterback in the ACC. And that is phenomenal. That is an incredible position for Duke football to be in. Now, Danny, I'm with you. This is better. It seems pretty easy to me.
Better. Like, I think we had a lot of reason to think Duke could make a jump last year. If you watched summer school and kind of read some stuff, it was kind of that they kind of checked out on Cutcliffe the last year, and he was trying to get his guys some shine by coaching other positions than they normally coach. So it just looked terribly coached. Like, Duke was probably not legitimately a top or a bottom 15 roster in the country in 2021, but still winning 9 games is really impressive. And I think he checks the box. Like, can this guy coach? Can he be a head coach? Because anytime you go from that coordinator to head coach jump at this level, that's a question we have to ask. And for me, he checked it. I think he utilizes that big staff they have pretty well.
I'm same. Not that I thought Mike Elko was going to come in and Duke was going to win 9 games a year. I'm not trying to take away from what they did last season. They had a very good season. They went 9-4, but
oh, you mean same, like not same as us, but like same, no change.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel exactly the same way I did about the hire. Mike Elko was brought in. We knew his defense was going to be fine, but what was Duke going to be? What's Duke trying to be? Like, it's not a team that's going to be competing for ACC titles. It's a team that they're trying to be solid. You're trying to be, dependable. You're trying to get to bowl games. And every once in a while, in a year when the rest of the ACC is down, or, like this year it was the division, they're going to put together a really good season. It just happened to be the first year. I don't think that Mike Elko is going to be winning 9 games a season. In fact, I'd be shocked if they go 9-4 again this year. I'm guessing they're going to be closer to 6 or 7 wins. And that's what I think Mike Elko's Duke is going to be. So just because it happened in the first year, I'm not changing my estimation of what this program is or the job Elko's going to do. And I don't mean that as disrespect, because again, it was a very good season. It's just, it wasn't completely unexpected.
There's some Satterfield here, you think?
Mm-hmm.
Like Satterfield, big year 1. The numbers really didn't justify how good it was. The drop off in year 2 was not as bad as people thought it was, given the record. I could see that.
So both with respect for what you thought of Mike Elko coming in, but also a feeling that we could return a little bit, water finding its level and the like. Tom going with some same on Mike
So
Elko.
like if they drop 5-7 or 6-6, I'm not going to be like, oh, actually he sucks now. It's like, no, this is what I expected.
Okay. Mario Cristobal, who went 5-7 in his first year with the Miami Hurricanes. He has some recruiting success, obviously a top 10 class in this past cycle, some talented true freshmen already on campus. He was able to retain Tyler Van Dyke after a little bit of smoke around his potential exit to the transfer portal following spring practice. He has hired a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, and several new position coaches. So 1 year later, are we feeling better, worse, or the same about Mario Cristobal?
I think we're going to have a clean sweep here, gentlemen.
It might just, what we might disagree on is the degrees. I'm going to go a little bit worse. right? Like, what do we know about Cristobal when he came in? Excellent recruiter, poor game coach, hard to work for. A lot of his staff's turned over. They signed an awesome recruiting class. He definitely had some in-game gaffes. It's year one. I think he's going to get a ton of time to build it there. I'm definitely did not see them going 5-7 last year. Part of that, Van Dyke getting hurt didn't help. But I think you have to ding them a little bit because they whiffed on some hires pretty bad. And some guys bolted off his staff already. So,
but didn't we know that could potentially be an issue?
The hard to work for or the in-game coaching?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying
hard to work for, and like I just remember, talking about Gaddis, who is the Broyles Award winner, and being like, well, he wasn't calling the plays really at Michigan. He wasn't in charge of that system. And here, like, I feel I'm with you. I'm slightly worse, not like just easy slam dunk, horrible, but I do give him credit for ripping the Band-Aid off with both sides and saying, you know what, this isn't working. And I think we were all more reasonable on what they were going to be when the expectations were off the charts. Sorry, Tom.
I was not reasonable. That's the problem. I bought in. Like, I thought last year, Tyler Van Dyke, I was talking all season how I was worried about Mario was going to do to Van Dyke what he did to Herbert. And that's exactly what he did. I saw my own demise coming, but I bought in. This is a team. You guys are talking slightly worse. Miami went 2-5 at home last year, and its losses were a 14-point loss to Middle Tennessee, a close 3-point loss to North Carolina. It lost to Duke at home by 24. It lost to Florida State at home by 42. And it lost to Pitt at home by 26. How are you only feeling slightly worse? They had a horrible season.
I think
went good.
I think normally, like, if a team quits on a coach, and they did, you got to fire the coach, except in year one. I think, like, because the roster turnover, it's not really your guys. Like, that's like the 1 year where it's acceptable for a team to quit on you because you're about to flip that thing.
I don't think it's ever acceptable for a team to quit on the coach. I'm not trying to be like, well, in year one, it's all right. If it happens in year 3, no, your team's quitting on you. Your coaches were quitting on you. None of this is good vibes. None of it. Not to say they can't come back. But my estimation or my expectation for what Miami is going to be under Mario Cristobal started about here, and it is down here right now, not even on the screen.
Do you remember?
Sorry, go ahead, Chip.
Do you remember that we were going into the Texas A&M Miami game like both of these teams were something?
Mm-hmm.
Miami started the year at number 15. It was definitely top 20. It was like 15, 16, or 17 in the preseason AP top 25 poll. They finished not in a bowl game. That 17-9 game against Texas A&M, obviously a loss that slipped away where they were just not able to get anything done. But the thing that is the most alarming to me is the quit on the team factor. And that's going to make me feel, this is a feelings episode, a lot of feelings here, but I feel much worse when a team loses 3 out of its final 4 games by 42, 30, and 26 points. It is going to be, and this is what also brought me to this point. When we had to consider what Miami would look like if Tyler Van Dyke left, it was going to be bad. And then we're going to be dealing with 2 bad seasons in a row. Then I start to be like, okay, so what are my expectations for this season? And they're not going to even sniff ACC title contention. They were picked to win the ACC Coastal Division last year. We thought that Mario Cristobal was going to have Miami not right up in the national picture, but at least in the ACC, which has a lower bar in the top tier. And I do not have that expectation. I feel much worse. Not to say that it could not turn around, but it ain't happening in 23. And honestly, I don't even know if it's happening in 24.
I'm going to be watching their recruiting class very closely.
The one that they're working on right now, the 24 class?
Yeah. Right now, they have 1 4-star and 6 3-star commits. That's not the same level of juice they had last year. Rankings change, different kids commit. It's way too early to make a judgment on a class. They're not off to like a fire start so far.
Be very interesting to see. All right. Virginia head coach Tony Elliott, 3-7. Obviously, just like tragic and awful end to the season for Virginia. The on-field product, though, even prior to the tragedy, was not great. Kind of tough to wrap around analysis that is fair both to the individuals in the program, but also being honest, from our position. Better, worse, or the same? I might say same. My expectations weren't super high for Tony Elliott at Virginia. I did not think it was going to be a home run, and I'm still very uncertain of what it's going to look like moving forward. There was a financial investment. Do you remember Tony Elliott was like coming down to like Duke and Virginia?
Mhm.
And then there was, the potential
$2 million deal, right?
Yeah. Got a big investment for the future of Virginia facilities. And so if they're going to do that, then I think he's got a little bit of a longer leash. So I'm the same on Tony Elliott.
Trying to grade this and ignoring what happened at the end of the year. Just trying to, the first 10 games before everything, the tragedy at the end of the season, I'm still feeling worse. Not like significantly worse, but this was a team that before that happened had lost 6 of its last 7 games. And its only win was a 16-9 ugly road win over Georgia Tech. I don't know if you guys remember that game. It was a Thursday night game. It was just an awful, awful, wonderful football game. But like losing to Miami last year in 4 overtimes, 14-12. Losing, they got blown out by Pitt by 30. They lost to a bad Louisville team. They got blown out by Duke by 21. They lost to a bad Syracuse team. They got blown out by Illinois by 21. Offensively, this team, like the offensive line was horrible, and you can't really, because of transfers and that kind of stuff, it's hard to completely pin that on the coaching staff because there's only so much you can do when your offensive line stinks. But man, they didn't really seem to make any kind of adjustments as the season went along to try to counter what they were dealing with either. So I do feel slightly worse.
Definitely worse than when he was hired. The same as I felt in like July, August of last year. I thought he made some poor hires on the offensive side of the ball. Kitchings, especially, just as every pass game he's associated with is generally awful. So I couldn't believe he made that hire. And we heard some, discouraging things about their recruiting, right? About how things would go. So, I was really, really down on them to start the year, and they played even a little bit worse than I thought they were going to play. But like I think we were all pretty skeptical right before the year. So slightly worse, I guess.
I think it's worse. I think it's worse now, but how bad it was at Clemson. I mean, he was the offensive coordinator, right? And like we look at that system now, and it got that bad at Clemson, and you brought that with you to Virginia with less talent, and you had a quarterback who was incredible, and then all of a sudden he looked not even average, below average. So I don't want to say you ruined him, but it's similar to Tyler Van Dyke. Massive expectations of what you could be, and you saw that regression. I'm kind of worried about Tony Elliott, like long term. Like, is this in another year, are we, talking about? I was just with Rondé and Tiki Barber, a little name drop there, a little golf trip, and I was just asking them, and they were kind of expressing the same thing, like, man, like, where are we? And I think they're also concerned about NIL and the landscape of college football and how it's only going to get more challenging for Virginia.
What does Virginia want to be? Like, they are one of these programs, and there are a lot of them in the ACC where you're having some tough conversations among your boosters, your university leaders. Do we want to play ball? Do we want to try to keep up with some of the other programs in our conference and across the country? How they handle Tony Elliott probably is going to be at least a signal to us in terms of what their expectations are going to be. Brent,
I bet he gets at least 4 years.
They seem lenient. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brent Pry, 3-8, year 1, Virginia Tech. Personnel wasn't great. Better, worse, or the same?
Same. Is it?
I'm better.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. Okay. Because he was so honest about how bad they were, and not in a way that indicated like he didn't know what to do. And he has seemed to have a very like clear-eyed view. He's not trying to fluff this up and say that it's something that it's not. And I think that is great for Virginia Tech football. And I think that he is going to be able to, if given a little bit of time, really build that thing out, not to where they're Virginia Tech of the, late 2000s, early, what is the tens? The tens? I don't know.
Tens.
Yeah, the tens. But I do think that he has that right combination of connections in Virginia, connections to the Virginia football community. It's going to take some time to repair everything that went wrong with Justin Fuente. I like the way that he addresses the status of his football team and the quality of his football team. And I think that was something. It was a tough first season, but he seems to have pretty good spirits about it.
I mean, he was honest, but did he go and do anything about it on the recruiting trail? No. 1 4-star, 26 3-stars. Maybe you're a really, really good scouting staff, like an Iowa or an NC State or something like that, potentially. But until I see that, I really can't give them the benefit of the doubt. They didn't have any juice on the recruiting trail. So the season was, I think, on the lower end of reasonable expectations. Like, you could have seen 3-9. They would have beat Virginia, I think. So like you could have seen 4-8, right? But the game got canceled, obviously. Somewhere in there. I think missing a bowl was a reasonable expectation. They did, but they didn't really do much recruiting wise to compensate for it. So I'm a little bit lower until I see that they're really good at scouting and they're getting some of these 3 stars that maybe we should have had as 4 stars.
I'm going to say worse. I mean, you haven't had a 3-win or worse season since 1992. Like, when you're historically bad, and like when Fuente before you was getting at least 5-6 wins and you're worse, like, I get you inheriting. I get that's not what they want to be, but I think you always want to see at least the same level, not that much worse.
Fuente did screw him. I will give Pry like the benefit of the doubt on that. Like, Fuente left them a bad roster.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying. It's a difficult situation, but I feel like you could also kind of maybe create it worse, because for me, like, I don't know how you guys felt, because you guys followed the ACC closer than I do, but I kind of just checked out on Virginia Tech about halfway through the season. I was like, oh, there's no need to keep watching this.
Yeah.
Oh no, I still had eyes on Virginia Tech because it was the ultimate, like, don't lose to them team. Like, NC State is playing Virginia Tech and almost loses. I think Georgia Tech, Miami, like, there were Virginia Tech later in the year played, like, other teams played down to Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech at least like got up and threatened for an upset before they beat Liberty. But Liberty checked out after the job interview process was completed. But it'll be a year where I don't think Brent Pry is expected to make a huge jump, but you would like to see some of those close losses against conference opponents flip to wins.